The jawless head fills the frame before the body is visible. It hangs close to the lens, smooth and sealed, a pale skull, bulb with no eyes, no nose, no mouth, no place where a face could begin. Pressure mist slides across its surface. The neck beneath it trembles with dark veins, but the head remains still, closed and silent. Then the center of the skull splits. 4 wet translucent petals open from the face area, folding outward with slow pressure. They are not jaws. They are not eyelids. They are not a flower in any earthly sense. Inside the opened head, dozens of pale embryos shift against the inner walls, each attached by thin black umbilical threads that pulse in the darkness. The face was never a face. It was the womb. The creature lowers its open skull toward the frame, and the embryos move with it. Some press against the inner petal membrane as if looking outward, though none have eyes. Their bodies respond to pressure, vibration, and the dark rhythm of the chamber. The petals flex wet and layered, holding the young inside the space where a brain should have been. Only now does the full silhouette appear. The monster is tall neck, heavy, and almost ceremonial in its stillness. Beneath the enormous skull, Bloom hangs a narrow-ribbed torso. The ribs are not bone bars. They are breathing folds that draw nutrient vapor through the skin. No mouth opens to feed, no nostrils flare, no eyes search the dark. The body senses through pressure veins running up the neck, each vein tightening when the chamber air changes. Its head is not a sensory organ, it is a reproductive chamber. The skull petals widen another fraction, the embryos inside turn as one. Black threads stretch from their backs into the inner head walls, feeding them through the skull tissue. The motion is controlled, almost sacred. The monster does not shake them free. It lets them face the outer dark while still attached, exposing them to pressure darkness before their membranes harden. This species opens the skull, womb only under deep pressure. If the chamber is too bright, too thin, or too open, the young harden early. Their bodies become useless shell tissue, pale and still, sealed before they can detach. The mother creature must wait until the mist thickens and the surrounding pressure presses against the opened petals like an invisible hand. A faint pulse moves through the neck. The pressure veins darken from violet to black. The open skull responds. The 4 petals spread wider, showing layered inner folds like soft transparent shields. Embryos closest to the surface stretch against their threads. One turns too sharply, its thread tightens, its pale membrane begins to cloud. The creature freezes. The entire body becomes a vertical shrine of restraint. The early embryo pushes farther toward the open skull edge. It is not ready. Its surface begins to stiffen into dull shell. The black umbilical thread pulls once, not like a hand, but like a current reversing through living cord. The skull petal tilts inward. The embryo slides back against the inner wall, still moving, not detached, not born. The failed hardening stops. The chamber darkens around it. The monster's skull is now half open, half closed, holding a balance between exposure and protection. The embryos must look outward before birth, but they must not leave. The ritual is not release. It is rehearsal. The creature turns its head slowly. There are no eyes to aim the movement, yet the motion is precise. Pressure veins along the neck sense the chamber's density. The ribbed torso pulses through the skin pores, drawing nourishment from the damp air. The opened head follows invisible gradients of pressure, lowering toward the densest mist. Every part of the body exists to protect the head. Womb. The torso is thin because it is only a support column. The neck is heavy because it carries sensing veins. The skull is large because the young grow there. What would be a face in another creature is only a sealed nursery waiting to unfold. The petals pulse again. A second layer opens beneath the first. Smaller inner flaps, translucent and veined, each holding embryos against the skull wall. Now the head seems deeper than its shape should allow. No brain cavity is hidden inside, no mouth tunnel leads inward. The whole skull is a folded chamber of reproductive tissue, packed with young pressed against living membrane. The embryos begin their outward gaze. They have no faces. Their fronts are soft pressure plates. They press these plates against the inner petal walls, learning the darkness outside through the skull's open tissue. The black threads pulse behind them. The mother creature holds still as their bodies memorize pressure. One embryo loosens, its thread stretches too far. The petal edge twitches inward, the chamber darkens. The ribbed torso contracts, and a wave moves up the neck veins into the open skull. The embryo is pulled back before full detachment. Its pale surface trembles, half hardened at the edges, then softens again under the chamber fluid. The skull must close before they are born. That is the reversal. Opening the head is not birth, it is prevention. The young must see the outside while still inside the face. Womb then return to darkness before their bodies can complete. Only after several cycles will they detach. This first opening is a pressure baptism, a rehearsal inside the skull. The creature raises its head. The monster occupies the frame, a faceless tower with its nursery exposed where expression should be. Then the skull begins to close. The outer petals fold inward first. The embryos retreat from the edges, drawn by their black threads. Inner flaps overlap them. The pale young are still visible for several seconds, moving behind wet translucent tissue. The skull bloom narrows from an open womb to a sealed bulb, but the motion is slow enough for the viewer to see that no mouth has shut. No jaw exists, no face returns only. The womb closes. A final embryo remains pressed against the inner membrane. It does not detach. It only turns its pressure plate outward, visible through the last slit of the skull. For one moment, the young seems to look through the face that is not a face. The slit seals, the head becomes smooth again, featureless and heavy above the ribbed body. Inside, the embryos still move. Their pale forms drift behind the skull wall, barely visible as shifting shadows. The black threads continue to pulse. The neck veins relax from black to violet. The creature stands motionless in pressure mist. Its skull has closed. Its young are still inside. The final image holds on the sealed faceless head, where something moves behind the bone, soft membrane, waiting for the next darkness to open it again.